Hey, my name is Chris. I'm from Wild Outdoor Living, and I'm going to go over just some of the different gear you might need for winter cycling. So we're here in Idaho. It gets them anywhere between -10 and about 35 during the winter, but we're usually somewhere in between 25 and 15 most of the time. So I'm not going to cover anything over 40 degrees. And keep in mind that a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about, it deals with snow and thick icy roads. If you live in a place where you don't have snow on the roads, some of these things may not apply. There's a lot of other videos on YouTube that talk about some of the different layers that you can wear and pretty general winter clothing advice, basically. And cycling is a little bit different, especially if you're commuting to somewhere and you don't have a whole lot of place to store stuff, or you're on a budget. So that all these things come into play, and so the main goal is to be able to stay warm, not overheat, and have room to put all your stuff when you get to where you're going. So the most important thing that you need to carry is some eyewear. Not the cold can make your eyes water, and that's true and everything. But if there's a thick snowpack, you're not going to be riding fast enough to really get your eyes to water unless it's really cold. But you do need to have it in case it snows, because snow getting in your eyes pretty much deletes all possibility of being able to see anything. So this is basically the minimum. These are some safety glasses. They're actually some really good guard dog safety glasses that work really well. But you at least need something to cover your eyes. Preferably the lens should be clear. Sunglasses are a little bit hard because the lighting is usually lower in the wintertime. So clear lenses are certainly preferable. But you're still going to have snow coming in up underneath these lenses, getting into your eyes. You're going to have wind, making it irritating your eyes and making it hard to see. So preferably you'll want to use something like a ski goggle. This is the helmet that I wear all winter. It's got a visor on it. If you don't have goggles, if you at least have a visor, that blocks a lot of the snow in emergency. But day to day, you definitely want to have some goggles. These keep all of the wind out of your eyes, and they're much wider than typical sunglasses, so you have a much wider range of view. Additionally, these work really well with the Balaclava. These particular ones do not fog up, although some do. These are just $15 pair of bowl goggles that I got off of Amazon, and I've had zero issues with these fogging up this year. So yeah, ski goggles, even you think they're just for skiing, but they're great for winter commuting, especially in really harsh winter conditions. As it gets colder, especially in the negative temps, it's really hard to see. Your forehead can go numb, and so the goggles, they make it's like wearing a wind chill, basically, and it just makes everything so much easier. Probably the biggest issue with winter riding is keeping your hands warm. As soon as your hands start to get cold, it's pretty much game over. It's very painful, and you're not really focused on what you're doing. So I personally have kind of a unique setup. You don't need anything super fancy. These are like $40 Bontrager winter to fall gloves. They're good for about 35, 40 degrees, depending on how well you're acclimated. And then these are just some mittens, basically, like garden mittens that you'd use out in the yard. And I found that putting these over these yellow gloves here can get me down to about -5, -10 without any issue. There are more expensive options. There's the mittens that you can put on your handlebars that are basically like big pockets that you can put your hands in. If you're riding in temps much lower, or you're going farther than, say, 5 miles or so, then you may want to look into something like that. But it is possible to very inexpensively keep your hands warm. You can also put hand warmers inside your gloves. That can really help, but it's a little bit hard to keep the fingers warm that way. So I found with this particular setup, I tried putting those thin mittens on underneath, and I don't know if it was just too tight in there or what the problem was, but I went out with one setup like this and one setup with the mitten underneath, and one hand froze and this one didn't. So this is the one that won. So try out some different gloves and see what works for you, and then go from there. It's pretty daunting when you first have your hands get that cold and you're not sure how you're going to go about getting them keeping them warm during the winter. But just try out some different things. It doesn't have to be expensive, and you can stay warm. So one thing I was doing before is I had like an 80s style Columbia jacket, and I had some layers that I had underneath, and it kept me very warm. I had absolutely no problem with that. But the jacket was so big, and with all the books I carry down to college, with a laptop and everything, there was just no room, and I was carrying around jackets and helmets, and it was just a little bit ridiculous. So I invested in a Columbia waterproof shell. It's a $90 shell. I got it off of Amazon for about $45, so really not that bad. A lot of the Arc'teryx, Gore-Tex stuff can run $350 or $250 or so. But this is an Omni-tech, is what they call it. They're waterproof, breathable fabric from Columbia. But yeah, I can go down to about 30 degrees just wearing just this jacket. It has absolutely no insulation, but it blocks the wind incredibly well. But it is nice and light, and it packs into its own pocket. I won't demonstrate that right now, but basically this is a full-on winter coat setup that I can pack into a very small space, as you can see. So it takes up a lot less space than a normal coat. The second thing I have is the Balaclava. This is, of course, it's great for keeping your ears warm. It keeps your head warm as well, and it covers all the way down to your neck. So some of those biting winter breezes aren't eating away at you. It also can come up and cover your nose. I don't do that very often just because I like to breathe the fresh air. Just a long sleeve, kind of active wear, stretchy shirt, polyester, cotton blend type stuff. Very, very thin. This packs up extremely small. This is what I wear between 20 and 30 degrees. And so I have that, and I have the shell, and that's it. And so I have a ton of space. It doesn't take up hardly any room in my backpack later on. Below 20 degrees is when I put on the fleece hoodie. So I bought this at an outlet store for like $5, I think, a few years ago. It's an Adidas fleece hoodie, and yeah, this will take me down all the way down to the negative temps that I told you about earlier. So even at 10 degrees, I have to be careful not to sweat with that combo. And this one is quite a bit bigger, but it still packs down really small. So that's huge for me. And it breathes really well. What shoes to wear? If you have flat pedals, it's going to be pretty much whatever shoes you want to wear. You're going to want to be looking at a pair of shoes that has less venting or less mesh if you're riding in the snow, and wool socks are really important for keeping your feet warm. What I personally do is I have the Shimano Am 45s. I wear clipless pedals with my bike. So these are quite a bit heavier. They are some of the best downhill shoes in the world. You'll see world championship downhillers racing on these, and they are incredibly stiff. For the most part, they do have some give compared to like a racing carbon shoe or something like that, but they're a lot stiffer than the casual shoes that you might see. So you get a pretty good performance out of them, and they're really good for walking in because they're completely flat on the bottom, and they've got a nice rubber sole. So they're not as good as a normal shoe for walking, but they are quite good. They're not designed as a winter shoe, but this is basically what you'd want to be looking for in a shoe that you would wear for winter if you don't want a dedicated winter cycling shoe. They don't have any venting on the top. They have very small perforations on the side, but they don't have any mesh. And I have walked through snow, I've ridden through tons of snow, and these keep my feet totally warm. And mostly you just need a shoe that doesn't have a lot of perforations in it, has maybe some fairly thick padding, and you'll be good to go. What I do is I take this reflective tape. You can find it at Walmart. It's designed to put on homemade trailers or to replace the reflective strips on trailers and semi-trucks. And so I just tape that on my bike in a few spots, and it is super reflective, a lot more reflective than stuff that's made for cycling. And it sticks on there. I can pull it off later. It's not stuck on there super hard. It's just kind of stuck on. It stays on really well through rain and snow and everything, but it doesn't damage the backpack, and people can really see me quite well with that. I basically don't even worry about my legs. Some people's legs get really cold. I don't really worry about it. my legs are moving around and they stay warm. So I just wear regular pants, and I wear wool socks when I can. Sometimes I don't. I'm just going to show you how this whole kit goes together, what it looks like when it's on me, and what you might expect to be looking for when you build your winter cycling kit. So I'm going to put on the full below 0 Fahrenheit setup here. So I just obviously put this on like normal. I don't worry about where the hood is at. Again, put my shell on. And before I zip it up, I put on the Balaclava. Now I'm going to get really hot doing this, so you're welcome. Now I don't normally zip it up all the way, even at -10. I don't really have an issue with that, unless I'm wearing the other layer, in which case I do zip it up quite all the way. So yeah, I just get my helmet on. It fits on the balaclava, no problem. And then I just put this on. I drop the visor, and then I start putting my gloves on. And in this setup, I don't really have to worry about cinching down these wrist straps, although I can, and that does help to keep some wind out. It's also nice to have a jacket that has a pull string at the bottom that can keep more heat in. And yeah, that's pretty much it. When I get to school, I have a helmet that has a visor that raises up enough, so I just put that up there. And I get my balaclava off. And you got to do this pretty fast because you know, you'll be comfortable riding along in the cold with the wind chill being significantly lower than what the actual temperature is. But as soon as you stop, that wind chill goes away. So if you don't want to sweat, it's just really important to get this stuff off as quickly as you can. I'd like to show you the bike that I typically use in the wintertime. This is just a cross-country mountain bike. It's a Trek Superfly. That's not really super important. The important thing is it's got 2.3-inch wide mountain bike tires on it that I can air down fairly low. I run these tubeless, and so I can run these about 15 psi, not worry about pinch flats or anything. I'm also running disc brakes. I run a single ring on the front. It's not really necessary, but there is a lot of road grime and stuff that gets caught up in this area, and having a front derailleur on there would just make things even worse. So I've had zero issues with this from a reliability standpoint, and it's done really well. There's really nothing else about the bike. It's pretty simple. It does have suspension. You don't necessarily need suspension, but it does get pretty rough out there. The snow can be fairly technical and bumpy even. So I was worried when winter hit that I wouldn't be able to be mountain biking anymore, but it turned out that every ride on the road was a mountain bike ride. So I was kind of happy about that, and the suspension certainly helps. It helps me for going downstairs anyways. But so yeah, there's really no reason why you can't ride your bike all winter long. We're about 80 miles from Yellowstone here, and so the winters are super harsh, and it hasn't been a problem at all. And I'm certainly not the only one riding. I've seen people riding on all sorts of different gear all winter. It should be said that my commute is only about 4 miles round trip, although sometimes I do extend it to about 10 miles. And either way, it's been fine. But if you do live farther out, there may be some other things to consider. You may want to spend a little bit more money on gloves and that sort of thing. But really, it's really not that bad. So get out there and try to do it.